Hey, Anthony, we are back on our FATCA series. Episode number 6. I'm excited about this one, FATCA and Streamlined Foreign Offshore Disclosure. So the first thing we want to talk about is eligibility requirements. I can't talk today. For Streamlined Foreign Offshore OVDP. Sort of?
Well, let's just be technically right here. Okay. I don't mean to attorney this to death, but it's Streamlined Foreign Offshore Procedures of the Offshore Voluntary Disclosure Program.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
so let's talk about how do you know if you're eligible?
Well, I think the thing is this is the one you want to qualify for. So we always try to see if people are eligible for it because it is the best thing out there for people who were non-willful in their failure to report all their worldwide income or report bank accounts.
Got it.
Okay, so you have to be an individual or the estate of somebody who passed.
Okay.
So either one, and sometimes it's both. You're doing both in a disclosure.
Got it.
You must certify that your failure to report all income, pay all taxes, submit all required informational returns, including FBARs, your 8938, which is your FATCA form, was due to non-willful conduct. And I think this is really something where an actual legal opinion is sort of beneficial by talking to an attorney. Mm-hmm. This is what we do for most of our time in law school is we want to look at what someone's intent is. Right. Intent is big, 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 big. And there's various ways to prove intent or disprove intent. And we've seen a lot of people who are really non-willful. Sometimes the IRS comes up with a different standard. Well, you were non-willful. Which is, wait, what is that? Oh, so that means you're willful? No,
right.
No. There's non-willful or willful. Sometimes the IRS pushes you around, or sometimes people who can't quite look at things from the best light to the taxpayer will say, well, you must have known. And I mean, that's a common thing of the IRS. Well, your client is educated and it must have known.
That's what I was going to say. One of the things the IRS looks at when I was reading it was your education. And I thought, I assume that the higher education, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we believe you. But no, it's the opposite. The higher education,
right.
Well, then you should have known.
That's a good point.
You're a smart guy.
Right, you're a smart guy.
Why didn't you know this? Because I know about science. I don't know.
Right, it's engineers, they get hammered. People, PhDs, the IRS like, oh, smart guy, went to all that schooling. And then a lot of the problems when you have someone in the financial sector, somebody who does a lot of trades, really, really savvy person, that's a hard one because the IRS is saying, oh, well, you must have known about international taxation because you knew of financial products, which they really have nothing to do with each other. You have no special knowledge because you know money.
Right.
And because you make money. You don't get special tax knowledge. So the nice thing about when you do a streamlined disclosure, you don't have to prove to the IRS during an audit that I'm non-willful. You just have to certify that you are, and it's up to the IRS if they want to challenge you later on, that whether you were or not. And the standard when they challenge you is the same standard as if you were going through an opt-out audit, as somebody being cooperative through the whole process.
Yep.
And again, the number one thing you have to address, I know our client is educated, but they're educated in this. They spend their time of their day doing this. And, a lot of times, the people who sometimes don't qualify for streamlined CPAs. Certain attorneys are a little hard to say, well, yeah. And then they're like, yeah, well, I did know. I was evading taxes. I'm like, okay, well, then this is an easy call. Right.
All right. So you won't be eligible if you are under criminal investigation from the IRS for anything at all.
Right. And you probably won't be if you're under investigation by the Department of Justice. They're just not going to.
They sort of work hand in hand.
Yeah. Yep.
Quiet disclosures still eligible for Streamlined, but previously assessed penalties won't be removed.
Right. So you can't do a quiet disclosure after you're caught in an audit. You can't say, okay, well, now I want to do a Streamlined. No, it's too late. And I mean, really, for the people who have done the quiet disclosures, and you're doing a foreign, there is basically no downside to this. And actually, it was one where, like, geez, if you only waited, you'd only have to do 3 years, and then probably the 6 years you probably did do. So really, it's amending your last 3 years, which are probably only 1 or 2 of them is a non-compliance, and your penalty's still 0. So if you've done a soft disclosure and you're an expat, get this done. Get it done immediately.
Pretty basic. You have to have a taxpayer identification number, Social Security number, or ITIN application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this isn't available for taxpayers who submitted OVDP intake application disclosure after July 4th, 1st, 2014.
Yeah, and I want to, we're gonna look into this a little bit more, because what happens and what has happened is so many people, so many professionals take a look at a case. They're like, oh, you're willful. You're willful. You're willful. You're willful. They submit a voluntary OVDP disclosure. Frustrating to say, wait, no, you're streamlined. And the thing is, what we know is the IRS likes streamlined because they don't have the resources to do the OVDP. So it's something I'm going to be looking into.
Yep.
We have some few calls to see, look, this is something on a website coded in HTML. It's not exactly law. So you guys made this up. You can make it different. And then we also know there's other things that aren't written down correctly. There's other hidden things about installment agreements and offer and compromises that don't quite make it in the official version.
Yes, that everybody here in the firm, they've used them successfully.
Right.
And they weren't supposed to be able to.
Right. There's a lot of things you're not supposed to be able to do. And that's really one, because when I look at some of the people who went full OVDP, it's like, this is a waste of the IRS's time. They don't, come on, they're going to give one of their high-end revenue agents, they're going to have to go through this. And now I'm going to have to opt the client out too, when really they're non-willful. Let's just get this done and not waste so much time and resources. So that's one rule that it's there, but it might not really be there.
Yep.
We'll find out.
All right. Non-residency requirement, streamlined foreign offshore procedures. So non-residency requirements for U.S. citizens or green card holders in any one or more of the 3 most recent years for which the U.S. tax return due date or properly applied extended due date has passed, the individual did not have a U.S. abode, and the individual was physically outside the U.S. for at least 330 full days. So temporary presence in the U.S. Nor maintenance of a dwelling in the U.S. are not sufficient to say that you had a U.S. abode. So there's no way they can... they're sticking to that rule, and there's no...
Yeah, and that's really, there's the substantial present test. That's the test for, they've just adopted the same, that's not the IRS's rule. They're just saying, hey, we're going to adopt this rule. So I don't see them really bending on that one much. They really don't want to. That's not one I'm going to, imagine that they're going to bend on. And it would be terrible if you were outside of the U.S. for 329 days.
Right.
Be terrible.
Yeah. All right. So the streamlined OVDP procedures.
Yep.
For each of the past 3 years for U.S. tax return due date or properly applied extended due date has passed. If returns have not previously been filed, submit a complete and accurate delinquent tax return using Form 1040 together with the required information returns, even if these information returns would normally be filed separately had the taxpayer filed on time. And
here's a huge advantage for people doing streamlined foreign offshore procedure. If you are unfiled and are domestic, Streamline's not open to you, or at least that's the official word. We haven't pushed it yet, but that, again, when you're dealing with an obvious case of non-willfulness, the IRS has demonstrated when you're dealing with an obvious case of non-willfulness, and when you're also dealing with where there's a penalty involved that just simply isn't going to be paid, we've seen the IRS demonstrate flexibility to make a cost-effective decision, not in every case. And you have to remember that all of these changes are all because the IRS couldn't handle the caseload. We mentioned the other day, the IRS was telling these offshore auditors that these, running an 8-year OVDP would it's going to be like 2-3 hours to do, and it's really more like 300-500 hours to run through all these numbers.
Yep.
So the IRS completely underestimated the workload involved. Also completely underestimated how many people were actually non-willful. They assumed everybody was evading taxes, and they assumed to correct those returns would be simple, easy, straightforward. IRS agents were also learning about Forms 5471. They were learning about 3520A and 3520. So, they're getting up to speed on that. And also your excise tax on foreign life insurance premiums, not exempted by 843D. I don't know. That's my guess.
Okay. All right. Well, we do know, like we had said many times before, there's penalties if you don't file, and they can be pretty steep. We're going to have separate series as we continue about penalties for people and also penalties for banks.
Yeah, we're going to do one for the banks.
Yeah.
They have a completely, the foreign banks obviously don't have a streamlined disclosure for FATCA. They have to do the due diligence for FATCA, and the IRS has a nifty way of punishing them.
Yep. Ooh. So what you can do is subscribe to our channel, and you'll get updates as we continue our FATCA series, the other awesome tax info. You can like and comment below, and thanks for watching. IRS Medic, the law offices of Parent LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.